Okay, good deal. All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Transportation Policy Committee. It is 10:03 on Tuesday, July the 11th. Call the meeting to order. Welcome each and every one. And this is a Zoom meeting, so I encourage you to leave your screen on per regulations for action that would be taken. Number 2 on the agenda. Well, I need the roll call. Andy, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for joining us. Let's start with Bullitt County.
I'm here, Keith Murphy.
Keith. Anybody from City of Charlestown? City of J-Town? New Albany. This being a Kentucky meeting, we may not have as many Indiana participants. Shively, St. Matthews. Oh, Mayor, Mayor, thank you for joining us. Clark County.
Brian Dixon.
Hi, Brian. Thank you for joining us. Anybody on from Floyd County? I think I see Nick on there.
Yep, Nick Creevy.
Hey, Nick, thanks for joining us. How about NDOT? I think I saw a couple ladies from NDOT.
Taylor here.
I'm here, Robin Bolte.
Hi, Robin. Hi, Taylor. Thank you all both for joining us. How about KYTC?
Jason Solana.
Hi, Jason.
Thomas Wood here. Yeah, Jason, do you want to vote? I think you're ranked ahead of me in terms of the voting order. So I'll let you take care of that if that's okay.
It's fine by us. Let's see. Let's go back to J-Town. I think I saw Matt Meunier. Hey, Matt. Thank you for joining us. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thanks for joining us, Matt. How about Louisville Metro Government?
Nicole George.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you for joining us. I don't think we have anybody from the Airport Authority. Oldham County, I think we got a full house.
Hello.
Hi, Judge.
Got two Jim Urbans here.
Two Jims.
Yep.
Got three. Oh, I got three. There's 3 of you.
Oh yeah, 3 people named Jim Urban.
Who said cloning wasn't a good idea?
Hey.
Well,
Well, which one's better looking?
I just got my hair cut.
Town of Clarksville. I don't know if we've got anybody on there. And last but not least on our voting membership is TARC.
Carrie Butler here.
Thank you for joining us, Carrie. And then do we have any of our advisory members, any FHWA personnel in particular? Let's see. Tanya, I see Tanya's name.
Good morning.
Morning. Good morning. So I think, did I miss anybody that's not KIPTA staff? We got several KIPTA staff obviously on the line as well. So you get a full house. So thank you all for joining us on short notice. A little bit worried about a quorum, but we've got almost like as good attendance as we do on a normal meeting. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, and conclude the roll.
All right, thank you so much. All right, just remember, I encourage you to keep your video camera on for voting purposes. Item number 2 is a public comment period.
So Mr. Greg Burris is usually the one that handles this agenda item. Greg is out with his daughter at Holiday World today. And so we received no public comments in advance of this meeting. I don't see anything in the chat. So I think we're good on this in this case for that agenda item as well. So we can move on if it's okay with you, Mayor.
Okay, good deal. Let's go to number 3 then. This is the KYTC federal funding, and the staff's going to be provided an update on the federal funding that's cost increases and whatnot. Action that will be requested. So over to you, Andy. You got it?
All right. I've got a presentation prepared, and let me make sure I can share my screen appropriately. I tried it a moment ago. All right, here we go. Make sure it works. Okay, can you all see a presentation screen?
Got it.
Got it. Good. All right. You see the full screen or the 2/3 of it?
2/3.
Shoot.
The agenda is kind of making up the right part.
Yeah. Hide presenter view. Let's try this.
That's larger, but mine's adequate to read.
Okay, I'll just go with this.
Okay.
I've got 2 screens set up in here, and that's we're playing a road game from our normal meetings. So this agenda item is kind of twofold, as I mentioned in the in the email invitation to you folks last week. We hope it's a quick agenda item, but I think the task at hand, the immediate task at hand is a relatively simple request, but unfortunately it brings a lot of other things into play. There are a lot more in play right now, given what we're hearing from KYTC. So let's jump in. And so here's kind of what we're going to talk about. There is a cost increase on the table for a project in Oldham County. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about why we need a special meeting. Why couldn't this been handled either later this month or even later, in a few months. And then we'll talk about what those short and long-term implications might be for this conversation that we need to have. The conversation will not be open and shut today on this bigger picture conversation, but it'll be covered in the next, coming weeks and months. It's going to have to be, frankly. And then last but not least, I will be requesting approval of that cost increase that KYTC is requesting on behalf of a project in Oldham County. So here we go. The project in question is known as Committe ID 1877. That's an intersection improvement project at the intersection of Kentucky 329 and the Kentucky 329 bypass. This is in Oldham County, in or near Crestwood. It's immediately south or southeast of exit 14 on I-71. So the 329 bypass was built years ago, and that's created an intersection that wasn't there way back in the day. But this is a safety improving project. That's a really high speed road, the Kentucky 329 bypass, and this is a safety improving project, fairly major project. Okay, that project currently is in our tip, and that's what I'm showing on the screen right now. This is a snippet from our brand new tip. It has, in fiscal year 2023, $2 million federal dollars assigned to it, programmed toward it, for a total of $2.5 million. It's got some a little bit of utility money in there as well. Okay, so that's the current project as it sits right now. This is a project in Oldham County that's being administered through the LPA process by KYTC, and therefore KYTC is requesting this increase. Okay, a little bit more about the increase. KYTC has requested that the federal amount increases from that $2 million that I just showed, that's in our tip currently, to a federal amount of $3.8 million. That's a cost increase of $1.8 million of federal money alone. Okay. Kind of the reason behind it, as you might expect, the bids that came in for the recent letting that was just a couple weeks ago, I guess, were about twice what the engineering construction estimates were. I believe the estimates were in the $2 million range for construction, somewhere in the 2 million, and all the bids were over 4. Okay, so that's a big deal, but it's not. It's also, hate to say it's kind of commonplace these days, it would seem. Okay. One of the things that KYTC is committed to, and that's very important, or it's not inconsequential anyways, is that the local match for this project, they have committed to covering that local match. Okay. So that additional federal dollars of 1.8 million would require, it would require a quarter of that value, about 450,000, if I'm not mistaken, to cover the additional match. So that's not inconsequential. KYTC is committed to paying that local match for this project. All right. That's what I know about this project right now. And that's about all I know about this project right now. So there we go. I'm setting the table there. So here we go. So you may say, well, that's something that's kind of interesting. We see those all the time. That's a lot of money. Can we afford it? Okay. Why is this urgent? Why are we having a special meeting? Why are we here today? When KYTC made this request last week to request this cost increase, they wanted it done urgently. And why did they want it done urgently? Well, that gets back to this issue that exists out there. Some of you may know a lot about it. Some of you may know a lot more about it than I do. But there's this issue out there where there's a major discrepancy between two different federal transportation accounting systems. All right. So the one that we see and hear and use most, or that seems to get used most in our neck of the woods and by folks that we deal with, and some of which are on this call, is the FHWA accounting system named FEMIS. That's the Fiscal Management Information System. They call it FEMIS, F-M-I-S, FEMIS. You might hear people talk about FEMIS. That's what FEMIS is. That's one of them. The other federal transportation accounting system is something I guess is more broad. It's the full-on USDOT accounting system, and that's something called Delphi. I don't know much at all about Delphi. Nonetheless, there's a believe it or not, there's a $3.5 billion with a B discrepancy between these two accounting systems. Okay, 3.5 billion. That's something. It's not it's a lot of money, and I'll leave it there. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, at some point there's going to be a reckoning with which one's official and which ones will be which one to be that we will operate, which dollar amount do we operate under. And what that has done, and per KYTC, this could happen any day now, is that the dedicated federal funding programs that are suballocated to regions like ours are thought or are expected to be the most at risk of basically all the dollars in these accounting systems. Okay. As everybody knows, we've got in Kentucky a tremendous carryover balance in our, what used to be known as the SLO programs, now called the STBG or STBG-MPO program. So those funding programs are at risk. What's most at risk within those programs, and this is important, is the money from the prior highway bills. Okay, so we've got this brand new thing, relatively brand new. Wow, it's almost 2 years old now, I suppose. The IIJA, the BIL, Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. The money that's come out of that federal transportation authorization, that's good money. Okay, that money's fine, or that seems to be fine. But the money that was from the prior bills plural, Safety Lou, Fast DAC, the ones that came before the IIJA or the BIL, that money, we are told, is at severe risk. Okay. In our region's name, not in Kentucky's name, not in all the MPOs across Kentucky's name, but simply in the Louisville, Jefferson County region's name, there is estimated to be in the FEMA system about $35 million of these STBG MPO funds, aka the SLO funds, that are at risk here. To add to that, there's 4.8 million in TAP funds that are similarly at risk for the exact same circumstances. Okay, so that money is at risk. More on that in a second. But this urgent cost increase would do a couple things. One, KYTC is prepared and ready to obligate that money like today, okay, or last week, really. They said they'd do it last week if they could. And so we said, well, how about we'll do a special meeting and get this, and hopefully get this process as soon as we can. And what that would do is that would immediately reduce that highest risk balance, that $35 million balance, that would come down by, let's say, $4 million. That is by approximately $3.8 million, I should say, right? The $3.8 million federal that would be in this project's name. That would directly reduce the high risk balance by approval of this cost increase and getting this project obligated. That would directly reduce that high risk balance. Okay, that's important to remember here. Okay, all right, I'm gonna keep going and then we'll have some questions here in a minute. This slide has a bit of a speculative feel to it, and I hate to speculate, but I'll try to not dive too deep into the speculation. What are the implications of all this that I've just mentioned? Well, KYTC has informed us that it's likely there's going to be some level of rescission or clawback or whatever you want to call it of some portion of that at-risk money, that 35 and that 4.8 I just mentioned. Some portion of that is likely to be clawed back. We don't know what percentage is at risk. KYTC does not know as of late last week, does not know the answer to that question. They believe it's not going to be all of it, but they also believe it's highly likely it's going to be some of it. Okay, that's what we're hearing. So that's informational for this group and we can act accordingly, and we can discuss more here in a little bit. So what would that mean to us? That means to us that at a minimum, there would seem to need to be a domino effect of some sort when some of our money, I'm going to use the term our money, the money that's suballocated to KIPTA, to the TPC at KIPTA, when our money gets taken, clawed back, goes through the rescission process, we're going to have to move projects out years in our funding programs. We're going to have to either or cancel projects. If somebody want to volunteer to cancel a project, that would help. That would help the problem that when some percentage of our money gets clawed back. But we're going to have to deal with that in the coming months. Is what I'm very afraid of. And I put on here, I call it good debt, bad debt problem, and maybe that's a good characterization. Maybe it's poor. And here's what I mean by that. We've got this incredible carryover balance of projects that have been programmed in our TIP through these funding programs. And some of them have been in our TIP for 5 or 10 or some even close to 20 years. Some of these projects had construction phases in this program that were over initially in our TIP for over 10 years ago. Okay. Those projects, not going to point fingers at individual projects, and I don't want to do it at individual project sponsors either, but those projects are seemingly becoming a bad debt for us. A bad debt meaning those projects created, those funds have been unobligated for 2 or 5 or 10 or 15 years. And so this money is still sitting out there in this FEMA system, and it hasn't been spent down. Okay. So that's the bad debt. Those projects are causing this problem for this entire TPC. There is good debt. The good debt that I'm referring to is the projects that are relatively new to the program. Projects that were awarded funding last year through our call for projects, projects that were awarded funding in the not just last year, but in the recent past, who haven't necessarily fallen behind schedule. Those projects are good debt especially the newer projects. In essence, you could say that those projects are funded with the funds in this current highway bill, the BIL. So but those projects likely aren't as far along as these bad debt projects. So if we have to pick winners and losers, you can see, I think, where we're headed. That's going to be a really tough conversation for this group. The projects that are the problem children, they might be fairly far along. We probably won't want to make a decision to take money from those projects individually and collectively. But these brand new projects that are playing by the rules and haven't fallen behind and are doing fine, they're easy targets to take money from, to push down the road. Remember, I said that domino effect, to push those projects down the road into fiscal year 28 or 29 or whatever year we're programming to. Right now, by the way, we're programmed through fiscal 27 in Kentucky. Okay. So we would presumably have to move some stuff out beyond that. And that's getting way out there. And that's what nobody wants to hear, is the projects, delayed in the programming phases. So I'll leave that part there. But then there's this other thing out there. This project that I mentioned earlier is an example of it. We are expecting at the end of this fiscal year, coming up here in a couple of months, sometime around there anyways, let's say, that there are going to be large and numerous cost increases and phase shifts, right? We just saw one for a project in Oldham County. That's what we're here to talk about today. But if every project out there, the bids are coming in 10%, 20%, 50%, double, triple, quadruple, whatever, it's a lot. that makes all of these things I just mentioned even worse, right? We are programmed through 2027, but if every project is programmed at a price tag that's half of what it actually might cost in modern times, whether it's because we've sat on the money for too long and inflation happened around us, whether it's because it's just market issues in a dysfunctional marketplace on some level, that's hard. That's for somebody else to decide. But we've got this coming. This is just one project. I would expect that we'd get phase shifts on virtually all of the projects in fiscal 23, because quite frankly, virtually all of the projects, we haven't done a very good job of obligating our projects this year. So here's a couple tables that I'm going to show. In our STBG, aka SLO program, and our TA program, Transportation Alternatives Program, this is money program to KIPTA. This is our money. This is TPC's money, okay? That's been sub-allocated to us. You can see on your screen the number of projects that are active in those programs. You can see also on your screen the amount of dollars that are programmed. That's kind of forward looking. That's the money that's sitting out there in these projects' names that needs to be obligated either really soon, or we're going to have to come up with a plan when some money gets taken away. Giant amounts of money, huge amounts of money. Okay. All right. That doesn't even reflect the money that's already been obligated for an early phase of some of those projects, by the way. That's what that asterisk is. Okay. You can see on your screen what we got going on there. Here, when Nick was here, he used to show you guys a table that looks something like this anyways. I hope I'm doing him justice. But here is our current status. This is from that FEMA's database. And this is our status as of the other day, last week. Okay. All right. So this talks about how we're doing. This is our scorecard for this year. So I've got the pre-bill money, if you will, the money that's most at risk. We got that CRISA issue. Remember, we had the CRISA issue last month or whenever that was recently. Yeah, it was last month, I think, where that debt ceiling basically clawed back all the CRISA money. And so thankfully KYTC said, hey, we can take that money, we can obligate it that same day before the president signs that bill into law. And we're good. We're good with that. And they're going to replace those dollars into our programs. And then we've got the current money. So that the VIL money. So that bad debt I mentioned, that's that top line. The good debt is that third line. Okay. All right. Then the CRISA is somewhere in the middle. So the way to read this is at the beginning of our fiscal year, we had $89 million available to obligate. We had $89 million available in this FEMA system. So far this fiscal year, or through July 5th, so through 3/4 of the fiscal year, the amount obligated has been $11 million. And that's 12.6% of that initial dollar amount. Okay. Leaving us an unobligated balance of $78 million. That is $78 million, or frankly, we're expected to be obligated this year, but haven't been. Okay. A little bit of the fine print here. The pre-BIL includes some infra funding. That's some unique funding that, so that's 37 is a little bit more than 35. You notice that the obligations to date are actually negative on those. I don't have a full explanation for those, but I think when projects get closed out, there's probably some money that unused money that gets put back into the pot, so to speak. Okay, so we've got negative obligations. That's something. Okay, that's not good. I shouldn't laugh, but it's something. Of the good money, the good debt, we've obligated 4 million of our 45. That 45 is in essence a couple years worth of funding of the new highway bill. Okay. I think this is important, is my other little asterisk or my little pound sign down here. At 12.6% that we've obligated through 3/4 of the year, we're 75% of the year and we've obligated 12%. If we exclude the CRISA money, remember KYTC swooped in and said, hey, last minute, we'll take your CRISA money and we'll throw it at the iMove project, the Gene Snyder 71 and 64 major project on the east end in Oldham County. They're going to take that money and they've already obligated. So that money's obligated. They took the in and out, took it and it's obligated same day or same week anyways. If we don't count that, right? If we don't count that, we've only obligated 5.8% of our funds. Remember, we're 75% through the year, 5.8% has been obligated. This is the issue right here, right? That we can't, collectively, we can't get these projects obligated for numerous reasons. And I don't have the answers to I don't have the answers and we know some of the symptoms, but I don't have the answers. And that's not for today's discussion, I hope. That's a discussion we're going to have down the road. But I think this is an important discussion because of the urgency, right? Because these pre-bill dollars, there is real risk that those dollars are going to disappear before our eyes per KYTC, potentially in the next few weeks, few days or few weeks. And that's going to be tough when that happens. That's going to be real tough when that happens. Just for reference, for our carryover balance, you may be wondering what's our carryover balance in our programs. It's been running at like $100 and something million, over 110 or 100 to 110 over the last several years. At our current amount that we've have obligated this year, if nothing more got obligated this year, our unobligated SLO balance is going up to $130 million next year, or as we enter the new fiscal year. Now, there's sure to be some late in the year obligations. It's not going to, probably won't be 130 as long as projects get obligated. If we obligated $50 million tomorrow, that 130 goes down to 80 right away. Okay, so that's it's unlikely to be that high, but nonetheless, it's not shrinking right now. We know, or I think we know that, or if not, I'm announcing that right here, right now. I'm saying what I hope needs to be said. With that, all I have left is to request the cost increase, but I want to take any questions and conversation about any of the things we've talked about here this morning. We can talk more about it at TPC later in the month. We have an upcoming Kentucky progress report meeting of all the Kentucky LPAs that happens in September. So we're coming up on that, where everybody will be bringing us their phase shifts, most likely for these projects that have not gotten obligated this year, these phases that have not gotten obligated this year, funding for those phases. But again, the simple request is to approve this cost increase, and I hope that you guys will consider that on behalf of KYTC in Oldham County. But with that, I'll turn it back over to Mayor Chapman. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, all righty. Questions, if you would, anyone?
This is Carrie Beller. I don't know that I have like a ton of questions, and just wanted to say I appreciate you explaining this like very complex and a lot of moving parts issue, and definitely understand the sense of urgency. So I will support this, support this action. And I'll just say, if there's something that we need to do as a TPC to sort of, work together to go through the projects, or, have a working meeting, I think we'd all be amenable to do that, to see if there are ways that we can, I don't know, maybe there's some projects we can put together, or, just agree, okay, this is one that if it has to drop off, it has to drop off, because we definitely get the sense of urgency, but certainly have some things to do. So if we need to have that another meeting or working group, I'm amenable to that, and I will vote for this action, of course.
Thank you.
Andy, I just wanted to add with regard to the specific project that, and you alluded to this already a bit, but the bids were competitive. There were 3 bidders. There was a significant cost included in one item, excavation. That we know that item can fluctuate sometimes based on rock in the vicinity, the nature of the project. It's on a curve. So traffic is going to be an issue. You mentioned the amount of traffic in that area already, but it again, most importantly, I think just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that through the bidding processes, the costs were competitive.
Yeah, I think this project is not unique. I think everybody would agree with that. I know we're having issues with both sides of the river. probably nationwide, perhaps globally. The costs of these things are just sky high. Transit, highway, sidewalks, it's all the things. So it's not unique. It's just, hey, here's a project of the moment that is stirring the pot for this larger conversation because of some things going on around it. And so this project is not guilty of doing anything wrong any more than any other project is, quite honestly. And from where I sit, it's important to get that money obligated for the reasons I've just stressed.
Andy, when the shift, we start looking at the shift projects, the shifting the projects later on in this year, will there be any way that we can at that point try to interpolate some kind of a price increase to know where the projects really stand dollar wise? Would that be wise?
I might have to defer to KYTC staff because I believe they attempt to put relatively update cost estimates on some, if not most of those projects as they come through the shift process. Tom, do I have that mostly okay, right, or correct?
I think that most project sponsors, especially when we get close to construction, we are doing our very best to provide as reasonable a cost estimate as we can.
Keep in mind, Mayor, that the projects that come out of shift don't regularly end up in these programs.
Sure, right. I understand.
Right? They're highway plan projects that are typically, not always, but typically not a part of these two programs we were mentioning today.
I think the thing, of course, is kind of, well, we've been kicking the can a little bit, but when you say eventually this money is under jeopardy, and are we talking 6 months, 9 months, year, tomorrow? Yeah, it's any, how urgent do we need to find a solution before we lose it?
Well, I'll say this. I don't know that anybody knows the answer to the question, but when I suggested that we address this issue, this project's cost increase at July TPC on July, 27th, I believe, here in a couple of weeks, it was suggested that time frame, that is between the other day when we got this notification about this and later in the month, stuff could happen. Like Mr. Rigney at KYTC indicated that it could be, it's imminent. How imminent? Is it today? Is it tomorrow? Is it next week? Is it next month? I don't know that anybody knows that, but I do trust him when he says that big time, because he knows this more than anybody in the Commonwealth knows about these issues, and I don't think there's any question about that. So I do trust his advice and his wisdom on that.
I'm just brainstorming, but would it be wise for him to, or could he come to one of the meetings and hear it firsthand? Not that we don't believe you, but maybe to line out some guidelines of what needs to be done and when.
Be happy to invite him. Jason Swallow, you think that'd be a good, you'd be okay with that? And we can maybe see if he can maybe he can explain some of these terms better. He can get the point across of some of the nitty gritty on federal funding as it gets administered by KYTC.
I've got a meeting with him right after this. I will circle back with you soon, Andy. But yeah, I don't think that he would have any issue doing that.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful to this group to lay the groundwork. I mean, it's not exactly what the current issue is. It's like, here's what these terms mean. Here's what you can do. Here's what KYTC is doing to maximize the leverage money. Yeah, I like that idea.
Okay, and that would be on hopefully the next July meeting, 27th, whatever date you said, right?
Hopefully, if not in July, hopefully we can maybe do it in August. But yeah, and
Right,
it can be depending on a lot of moving parts.
I think we need to just make sure that we've done everything that we should do and need to do in a proper way, and let him help drive that train for us to do it. Okay.
Agreed.
Other questions?
This is Tom Hall with District 5, and I really had more of a comment than a question. I've been around this program for a long time, and I'm familiar with a lot of these bad debt projects that Andy's talking about. And I'm gonna say that I don't know that I agree with describing older projects as bad debt projects. I think that projects that can't meet a schedule isn't that uncommon, especially when we are unrealistic, when we plan a schedule at the beginning of a project. But the real point I wanted to make about the older projects and projects that are already in the system is that, some of these projects are in the design phase, or even maybe in the phase of acquiring right of way or moving utilities in order to get to a eventual construction phase. And my point is that we are not allowed to just abandon federal projects. And in many cases, we may be obligated to pay back federal highways for the money that they've already invested in these projects. If we either A, don't build something, or B, identify the project as a no build through the NEPA process. So this is a much hairier deal than just saying old projects that aren't moving, kick them out. And so I just wanted to, bring that to the table and mention that it's probably uglier than it looks. But just so that's really all I had to say. But I certainly don't disagree with Oldham County and advancing money to that project because it makes sense. So anyhow, that's really all I got to say.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that, Tom, because it's an impossible spot, right? Because those projects, for all the reasons you elaborated on, it's very unlikely we can get away from many of them, if any of them at all. Perhaps there might be some, maybe. It's a case by case basis at very best. But those are the projects that were great ideas from out of the communities that are on this call today. So, if they're great ideas 2 to 15 years ago, they're probably still a pretty good idea right now. So I'm not suggesting that anybody wants to get away from those projects. I'm just suggesting that something's got to give, or something's got to at a minimum likely move out to the future years. And so we won't be able to deliver these projects or program these projects on the same timeline in our tip as we might have suspected or might have programmed it, realistically or unrealistically. I think at first when they're programmed, they should I hope they are realistic in some people and the person that's applying for these projects' eyes, and things can happen, and other bright shining objects get in the way, I think, sometimes too in some cases, and so we get distracted from some of the projects that we have as we chase the new dollars, and that's normal, that's natural, we all do it perhaps. So, but again, thanks for the comment, Tom.
All right, other comments before we take action? I guess we need a motion then to amend the 1.8 million. How would that motion need to read?
Yeah, so it would be to approve for the TPC to approve the cost increase of an additional $1.8 million of federal money in the STBG program. And what we would do, by the way, this is not part of the motion, but we would process that immediately today through the administrative modification and send that to KYTC and NDOT, but KYTC immediately after this meeting, and the money would get obligated perhaps today, if not today, real soon by them.
I'll make that motion, but I don't know that I can repeat it. So moved as to what Andy said the motion was. I understand it, I just can't repeat it.
Okay. Do I have a second? Hello? You have a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, I have motion second. Any other comments, questions about the motion and this that's for the board? If not, make sure your screen's on, raise your hand. All in favor? Aye.
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 Got it?
Okay. Opposed, like sign? Appears the motion carries. You got to count, Andy?
Yeah, it looked to be unanimous. All voting members voted affirmative.
Okay. The motion carries in. Thank you so much. And I guess we're ready for item number 4. Any other business to put before this board?
I certainly don't. I don't know the KIPTA staff does. We'll keep this conversation going. We'll see what we can do to advance the conversation productively. Always looking to advance it productively. A little bit of that will be at TTCC tomorrow. We do have our regularly scheduled meetings later this month. TTC's tomorrow morning, or excuse me, tomorrow afternoon. And then TPC will meet here in a couple of weeks. And so I'm sure we'll discuss it a little bit further at that time as well.
All right, if you can, just keep the comments moving forward from this meeting. If no other business, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, motion
Second.
and a second. Motion and a second. All in favor, aye? Aye. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you folks so much for taking your time out to come to this special meeting. Thanks so much.
Thank you all so much. Take care. We'll see you soon.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, that went pretty well. I'm glad. I think got their attention, I think, and we need to get everybody's attention, and I hope it's productive.
Okay, good deal. All right, thank you.
We'll see you soon.
All right, take care.
All right, bye-bye.